I salute the Confederate flag with attention, reverence, and undying remembrance.
Okay, you may be seated.
Two. Color guard, 2 steps back. March.
First of all, let me introduce myself. Sorry. My name is Regina Orzakowski. I'm the president of Robert E. Lee 146 here in Anderson, United Daughters of Confederacy. And we want to take a few minutes to recognize some guests before we get started. If you are in the UDC division officers, please stand. You have any district officers? And chapter members, please stand. Hope is a chapter member, but I don't know if she can get it. Okay. SCV members, stand or raise your hand. And Henry Richardson's going to come up to make some remarks on behalf of the SCV.
Thank y'all. I'm Henry Richardson. I'm from Fairplay, and I'm the South Carolina Division Heritage for Youth Committee Chairman. I welcome you from the South Carolina Division. This is what it's all about, folks. You know, we've been through a lot of stuff in the past few months, but this is what it's all about. Honoring what our soldiers fought for, what they stood for, and honoring their graves. And it just gives me great joy to be able to be here today and honor this Confederate veteran. You know, he went off to war. He probably never had left home. Went off to war fighting for the South. That's what we need to honor. That flag has took some stuff that it didn't need to take, and it was not that flag. That flag honors these boys. These boys fought under that flag.
Amen.
So that's what I'm here to represent today. If y'all need anything from the Sons of the Confederate Veterans, get in touch with me, and we'll be glad to hook you up with a membership. But this is what we do. This is our job. Thank you.
Family members, please stand. I think that's about everybody here.
Look at all this. This is amazing.
Y'all may be seated. I bring you greetings today on behalf of Robert E. Lee, number 146, United Daughters of Confederacy. For me personally, this has been 3 years in the making. I joined the UDC in 2011, but I've been going here to church since 2006, and I never really paid very close attention to our cemetery. One Sunday in February 2012, for some reason, I chose to exit the church through this parking lot, and I'd never done that before. I turned around for one brief second, and I noticed this headstone right here. And so I was determined from that point to find all the Confederate soldiers buried in this church cemetery. In my research, I found 6. I would like to point out the gentleman in the fence is Nathan O. Farmer. He was a lieutenant with Gist Rifles, and he donated the land on which we're standing today for them to start the church. And then let's fast forward to 2013. We were in Fort Shoals. We're gathering at the grave of Hudson Berry for our DAR chapter and did some grave exploring. And if you're in a genealogical group of any kind, you understand the need to go through a cemetery. You understand that need. And while we were there, it was pointed out to me and Diane Brown that the grave of J.W. Major was there, so we took a picture and sent it into the hometowner. Next thing I know is I'm getting an email from Roy Kelly, who I knew from the Townville Cafe, about his great-grandfather being buried here at Oakdale. So we fast forward again to March, and I did a presentation for the Joseph Norton SCV, and who's a member? None other than Roy Kelly. So we've been talking about this for some time, and here we are today. Cemeteries and headstones are reminders of sacrifices made in life. We need to preserve our cemeteries as a reminder of our history. In the Bible, Joshua said to the Israelites, "In the future, when your children ask their fathers, what is the meaning of these stones, you should tell them, One day, a generation of children will walk through a churchyard very similar to this and ask that very question. It is our job to make sure these markers are here so that these children can be told of the men who fought for their faith, family, and land. Across this great country, there are several markers just like this very one, but it says unknown soldier. Today, one soldier specifically is being honored, but let us not forget so many who died on the battlefield and were buried where they fell. I think of men like my fourth great-grandfather, Samuel Aaron, who may lay in a grave very similar to these unknown markers. He left his wife and daughter in Athens, Georgia, to go and do what he felt he had to do to defend his home and family. He was injured during the Battle of Chancellorsville and died a month later in a hospital in Richmond, Virginia. Let us use moments like this to not only honor those whose final resting place is their home, but to remember the sacrifices of those who kissed their wives and children that one last time, never knowing it was the last time they would ever see each other. I would like to challenge you to honor the final resting places of not only your Confederate ancestors, but all your ancestors. If you are like me and not in the locations of cemeteries and graveyards that your forebears lay, then find some in your area and take care of it. Do so to honor them and honor your descendants, so they will have the reminders it was done so long ago by men and women. And don't forget, our Southern women made many sacrifices, so that they will have their freedom tomorrow. Thank you. At this time, I'm going to introduce Diane Brown, who's a member of the Robert E. Lee chapter. She's going to read the biography of John Martin for us.
Private John Martin. Mr. John Martin was born on June 10, 1838, in Pickens County, South Carolina. At the age of 21, he volunteered for the Confederate Army on July the 20th, 1861. Induction information shows that Private Martin, assigned at Camp Pickens to Captain Joseph J. Norton Company, Orr's Regiment, South Carolina Rifles. He was enlisted to be in there for 3 years or the duration of the war. Private Martin's induction papers describe him as being a fair-complected, light-colored man with blue eyes, height 5 feet 11 inches tall. On September the 30th, 1862, there is a military record on Private J.W. Martin as wounded September 1, 1862, following an enemy engagement at Ox Hill, Virginia. On April 30th, 1863, military records reflect Private Martin as missing, and on July the 16th, 1863, Private Martin's name appears on Union records as a rebel prisoner of war confined to Newton University, Union Hospital, Baltimore, Maryland. 3 days later, Union records indicate that Private Martin was being transferred to the Union Hospital at Chester, Pennsylvania. Further Union records show on July 31, 1863, that Private Martin, as a POW, was captured on July the 3rd, 1863, at Williamsport, Virginia. On a muster roll in August from Camp Lee near Richmond, Virginia, Private J.W. Martin was listed among Confederate soldiers in exchange for Union prisoners. Roll call records show that Private Martin returned to duty with Orr's Regiment, South Carolina Rifles, following his release as a POW. There is also records showing that Private Martin, in October of 1864, being admitted to Jackson Hospital in Richmond, Virginia, and returning to duty on November 14, 1864. Further records state that Private Martin, as prisoner of war for the second time, being captured at Petersburg, Virginia on April the 3rd, 1865, and being held at Hart's Island, New York Harbor. On an oath of allegiance record dated June 16, 1865, Private Martin takes the oath of allegiance to the United States and is released that same day from being a Union POW at Hart's Island, New York. With the War of the States ending and following almost 4 years of service in the Confederate Army, Mr. Martin returns to the upstate area of South Carolina and resumes his farming career. He is married to Elizabeth Bell, and from that union were 6 children, 4 daughters and 2 sons. Mr. Martin's sons, who shared their father's given name, John Thomas Martin and William Lawrence Martin, resided in the Fort Township area of Townville, where they were well-known farmers. There are many descendants from John, William, and Elizabeth Martin present here today, with many continuing the legacy of sharing the given name of John and William. Mr. Martin passed away on June 19, 1906 at the age of 68, and his widow died 25 years later at the age of 100. Both Mr. and Mrs. Martin are buried here as well as their son at Oakdale Baptist Church.